The official start of Halloween, in my humble opinion, is not October 1st. It's not even when the first bag of candy corn hits the supermarket shelves, an event which seems to happen sometime around the 4th of July. No, the season truly begins on October 28th. It begins the moment I sink the final support stake for the guillotine. Dude, seriously, is that a real guillotine blade? I squinted up, wiping a bead of sweat and fake blood off my forehead. My best friend, Mark, was helping, which in our 30-year friendship has always meant he sits in one of my lawn chairs, drinks my beer, and provides color commentary. "It's foam insulation board, Mark," I said, stepping back to admire my work. "The heavy-duty kind from Home Depot, painted with 3 coats of Rust-Oleum chrome. But thank you. That's the exact review I was looking for." "It just looks sharp," he said, taking a sip. "And the blood. That's a lot of blood." "It's suburban Gothic, man. It's a vibe. The corn syrup and red dye combo is a classic for a reason. It spatters well." I stepped back onto the sidewalk, joining him, and took in the full panorama. My lawn, my canvas. For the past 5 years, ever since I moved into this beige on slightly darker beige neighborhood, I've made it my personal mission to be the one-house antidote to the crushing HOA-mandated monotony. This place, Willow Creek Estates, was where creativity came to die, usually smothered by a tastefully neutral throw pillow. This year, I'd outdone myself. I called the theme Marie Antoinette's Last Barbecue. To the left, crawling out of my wife's pristine azalea bushes, was Gary. Gary was an old animatronic deer from a hunting store that I'd picked up at a garage sale. I'd reskinned him. He was now a tastefully decaying zombie in a ripped tuxedo. Programmed to lurch forward whenever a kid hit the try-me pressure plate I'd disguised as a loose paving stone. To the right, I'd set up the Skeletalica Tour, a full 4-piece skeleton band, complete with a drummer missing his lower jaw and a lead singer I'd fashioned with a long, stringy 80s metal wig. But the centerpiece, my pièce de résistance, was the guillotine. It was magnificent. 10 feet tall, constructed of 4x4s I'd distressed and stained to look like ancient, waterlogged oak. The foam blade was held aloft by a fraying rope. At the bottom, a wicker basket held the main event. A dummy head I'd sculpted from clay, cast in latex, and painted with what I felt was a very realistic post-severance expression. A sort of, well, this stinks look. "You're sick, Leo," Mark said, but he was smiling. "Truly, this is art. But I give it 12 hours before you get the letter." "Nah," I said, taking the beer he offered me. "It's Halloween. It's all clearly fake. It's harmless. People like this stuff. It breaks the monotony. People say they like it. But this neighborhood, monotony, is their brand. They have a committee that determines the acceptable shades of mailbox. It's just fun, Mark." "I'm just saying," he pointed with his bottle. "Target acquired." I followed his gaze. Down the street, at the far end of the cul-de-sac, a figure had emerged. We called her the woman with the visor. She was, I guessed, in her late 50s. Always dressed in a matching pastel tracksuit, designer sneakers, and the ever-present tennis pro-style sun visor that seemed to be surgically attached to her forehead. She power-walked. Not a casual stroll, but an aggressive, hip-swiveling, arm-pumping power walk, as if she was perpetually trying to return a defective toaster to a department store that had closed in 1994. She was the president, chair, and, as far as I could tell, sole member of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association Decency Committee. She's on patrol, I muttered. She's lapped you 3 times since I've been here, Mark noted. She's timing you. I think her visor is getting tighter. We watched as she power-walked past my house. She didn't slow down, but her head swiveled, her eyes locking onto the guillotine like a hawk spotting a field mouse. Her pace didn't falter, but her arm pumps became just a little more violent. She hates it, I said, a grin spreading across my face. She loathes it, Mark corrected. She's probably composing the violation notice in her head right now. Item 4B, display of non-sanctioned decapitation paraphernalia. Letter. What's she going to do? Fine me? It's temporary holiday decor. It's protected. It's festive. The head in the basket is festive? It's celebratory of a historical event, Mark. Look it up. Mark finished his beer and crushed the can in his hand. Well, I'm out. I've helped all I can. My artistic consultation is complete. He stood up from the lawn chair. My advice? Rig the guillotine to drop a rubber snake on her if she touches it. Tempting, I said, but I'm an artist, not a sadist. You're a sad artist. See ya, man. And good luck. You're gonna need it. I watched him go, then turned back to my display. The sun was beginning to set. The low orange light cast long, dramatic shadows from the guillotine. The red LEDs in Gary's eyes flickered to life. It was perfect. It was beautiful. Halloween isn't just a holiday for me. It's a release valve. I work a job where I stare at spreadsheets for 8 hours a day, optimizing supply chains. My entire life is about making things more efficient, more predictable, more beige. But for 1 week in October, my lawn is my own. It's my annual protest against the color taupe. It's not about scaring kids. It's about making them laugh. It's about making them look. It's about art. I heard a sound from the end of the street. A thwack, thwack, thwack of expensive sneakers on asphalt, faster this time. The woman with the visor was on lap 5. And this time, she had a clipboard. Showtime. I was, in the garage, sorting bags of full-size candy bars, because I'm not a monster, when I heard the sound. Not a knock. Not a doorbell. It was a sharp rap, rap, rap on the aluminum garage door itself, like someone was trying to use a gavel. I hit the button, and the door slowly rumbled upwards, revealing the woman with the visor, standing exactly at the edge of my property line, as if my driveway was contaminated. She was tapping the clipboard with a pen. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice was exactly as I'd imagined. High, tight, and carrying the implied threat of speaking to a manager. "Excuse me?" "Hey there," I said, wiping my hands on my jeans. I leaned against the workbench, projecting what I hoped was an unflappable homeowner vibe. "Like the display? The zombie's name is Gary. He's a hit at parties, though he mostly just groans and eats the dip." She did not smile. Her visor seemed to cast a permanent, judgmental shadow over her face. "I am the chair of the Neighborhood Decency Committee," she announced, as if I should have genuflected. "Karen?" I guessed. Her eyes narrowed. "My name is Ms. Davenport, Karen Davenport, and this—" She gestured to my entire lawn with a sweep of her clipboard. "This, charnel house, is too graphic." "Too graphic?" I repeated, feigning confusion. "It's Halloween. It's all fake. See?" I walked over to Gary and tapped his head. "Papier-mâché. And the guillotine? Insulation foam. It's 100% non-lethal, I promise." "I am not amused," she snapped. "I have had multiple complaints." I glanced up and down the empty street. Multiple, I asked. It's been up for 40 minutes. Did you poll the garden gnomes, or was it a conference call with the squirrels? Her face, which I hadn't thought possible, got even tighter. I have had a complaint from Mr. Henderson in 4B, Mrs. Gable in 2C, and the entire Peterson family. They said their little Braden woke up from his nap and saw it. And he was traumatized. Traumatized by what? The impressive craftsmanship? The historically accurate staining on the wood? By the head, she shrieked, finally losing her composure and pointing at the basket. By the blood! This is a family neighborhood, not a French slaughterhouse. It's indecent. Karen, I said, dropping the friendly act and adopting a tone of forced patience. It's 3 days before Halloween. There's a Spirit Halloween store in a defunct Circuit City 5 miles from here, selling zombie babies and severed limbs. I think I'm well within the community standards for spooky. Not this community. She thrust the clipboard at me. This is an official violation notice from the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Article 7, Section 4. All seasonal decorations must be, she quoted from memory, tasteful, non-offensive, and conducive to a harmonious neighborhood environment. And Skeletalica isn't harmonious? I think their drummer has great rhythm. This notice gives you 24 hours to remove the offending items, she said, her voice dropping to a low, victorious growl. Or you will be fined $100 per day. She specifically tapped her pen on the guillotine. This is the main problem. It's graphic. It implies violence. It's indecent. It goes. I took the paper from her. It was an official, laminated form. They had laminated forms. So let me get this straight, I said, reading the violation. You're fining me because my Halloween decorations are scary. They are inappropriate, she corrected. We in Willow Creek value a certain aesthetic. This is not it. This is a lovely, quiet, safe place to live. And your display is an assault on the senses. I have a petition right here. Furthermore, Mr. Bojangles next door, Mrs. Gable's prized poodle, hasn't been able to relieve himself on the grass all afternoon. He's terrified of the zombie. This was a new level of absurdity. So, a constipated poodle is now my problem? The entire neighborhood is your problem, sir. You are upsetting the peace. 24 hours. She didn't wait for a response. She spun on her heel, a perfect drill sergeant pivot, and thwack, thwack, thwacked her way back down the street. I stood there, the violation notice flapping in my hand. Mark was right. 12 hours was generous. I looked at Gary. I looked at the guillotine. The sun had completely set now, and the spotlights I'd hidden in the bushes kicked on, bathing the scene in a wonderfully eerie green and purple light. A $100 a day fine. Too graphic. Indecent. I crumbled the notice in my fist. We'll see about that, Karen, I muttered to the head in the basket. We'll see about that. The next morning, October 29th, I was defiant. I hadn't touched a thing. In fact, I'd added a small speaker behind the guillotine that played a subtle, crowd-jeering sound loop at a low volume. Tasteful, right? I was on my front porch, drinking coffee, and pointedly enjoying my own handiwork. Across the street, I could see the curtains in Karen's front window twitching. She was pacing. I saw the glint of her phone at her ear. She was escalating. I didn't have to wait long. At 9:15 a.m., A squad car from the county sheriff's department rolled slowly down the cul-de-sac. It didn't speed, but it moved with a kind of suburban inevitability. It pulled to a stop, lights off, directly in front of my house, parking on the wrong side of the street. My heart didn't pound. I wasn't scared. I was annoyed. This is what my property taxes were paying for? A mediator for a Halloween dispute? 2 officers got out. The first one, the driver, was older. He had the kind of face that had seen everything, been impressed by nothing, and just wanted to get to his pension without any sudden movements. His name tag read SGT, Miller. The second was a kid. He couldn't have been more than 22, with a mustache that looked like it was still pending approval. He was bright-eyed, earnest, and already had his official-looking notepad out. His tag read Officer Davis. Sergeant Miller took a long, slow look at the guillotine. He looked at Gary. He looked at Skeletalica. Then he looked at me, sitting on the porch with my coffee mug. He let out a sigh so deep and so profound, I felt it in my own chest. "Morning, sir," Miller called out, not bothering to walk up the driveway. "Morning, officers," I said, staying put. "Beautiful day for it." "Is it?" Miller replied, deadpan. He ambled up the walkway, Davis following a step behind, already scribbling. "We got a call," Miller said, stopping at the foot of my steps. He gestured vaguely with his thumb. "About a public execution?" "Officer, it's a foam core prop for Halloween," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "My neighbor, Visorius, over there." I nodded toward Karen's house, where the blinds were now angled at a perfect 45-degree vantage point, "is on a one-woman decency crusade. She seems to think my lawn is traumatizing a local poodle." Officer Davis, the rookie, looked up from his notepad. "Did you get a name on that Visorius?" "Son," Miller said, not even looking at him. "Put the notebook away." Davis, looking slightly crestfallen, flipped his notepad shut. "Look, sir," Miller started, clearly searching for the right words. "My name is Sergeant Miller. This here is Officer Davis. We're here because we received a disturbing the peace complaint from a Ms. Karen Davenport." "Shocker," I said. "Now, is what you're doing here illegal?" Miller continued, rubbing the back of his neck. "No, it's your property. It's not a public nuisance in the legal sense. It's not making noise." "I heard a jeering crowd," Davis chimed in. I raised my hand. "Guilty. Low-volume atmospheric sound. I can turn it off." Miller shot Davis a look that could curdle milk. "Point is, it's not breaking any laws." He leaned in a little, lowering his voice. "But is it giving me a splitting headache before 10 a.m. on a Tuesday?" "Yes. Yes, it is. The lady says it's traumatizing the neighborhood children." "What's traumatizing," I argued, "is her beige vinyl siding. It's an affront to the very concept of color. But you don't see me calling 911 about it." A small smile twitched at the corner of Miller's mouth. It was gone in an instant. "I get it. You're that guy. Every neighborhood's got one. You like Halloween, great. I like fishing. But if I started chumming for sharks in the community pool, Ms. Davenport would probably call in a SWAT team." He looked over at Karen's house. "Look, she's fogging up the glass. She's not going to stop. This complaint, right now, is on my desk. I can either close it, or I can keep closing it every day until November 1st. And trust me, you don't want Officer Davis here taking a full incident report on your foam core head. He'll be here till Christmas asking about its motivations." "Sir, is that prop to code?" Davis asked, his hand twitching toward his notepad. "Davis, I swear to God," Miller snapped. If you ask him about the code for Halloween guillotines, I'm putting you on traffic duty for a month. Put the book away." He turned back to me, his reasonable man face firmly back in place. "Just, come on, man. I've got real problems. There's a guy 3 streets over who thinks he's a sovereign citizen and is trying to build a moat. I've got an actual real-life domestic dispute waiting for me. I don't have time for a war over fake zombies." He sighed again. "Can you just tone it down? For me? So I don't have to come back here and listen to Ms. Davenport pronounce the word indecent 50 times. He wasn't ordering me. He was asking, man to man. He was a tired guy who just wanted to do his job. And honestly, I respected that. "Tone it down," I repeated, tasting the words. "Yeah, just, make it less guillotine-y. The head in the basket is what's really got her wound up." I nodded slowly, an idea beginning to form. A beautiful, terrible, brilliant idea. The seed he'd just planted was already sprouting. "Tone it down," I said again, this time with a small smile. "You know what, Sergeant? You're right. You've got better things to do. I don't want to be a problem. I'll take care of it." Miller looked visibly relieved. "Thank you, sir. Thank you. We appreciate your cooperation." "Not a problem at all, officers. I'll tone it down. Consider it toned." "Great. Fantastic." He slapped Davis on the shoulder. "See, Davis? De-escalation. It's all about communication." "Yes, sir," Davis said, looking impressed. They walked back to their car. As they pulled away, I saw Karen's front door open. She stepped out onto her porch, clipboard in hand, looking smug. She'd seen the cops leave. She'd seen me cooperating. She thought she'd won. She gave me a little 2-finger wave, the kind you give the hired help. I just smiled back and gave her a full, friendly, 5-fingered wave. I went inside, my coffee forgotten. I had work to do. "Tone it down." Not graphic. Kid-friendly. I was going to give her so much kid-friendly, it would send her into diabetic shock. I grabbed my phone and immediately called the one person who would appreciate this. "Mark," I said, the second he picked up. "The cops just left." "No, already? Did they bring the Bearcat? Did they tase Gary?" "Worse. They were reasonable. An old, tired sergeant and a rookie who looked like he was on his first ever sugar high. They asked me to tone it down." "Ah, the tone it down speech," Mark said sagely. "The death knell of all suburban fun. So you're taking it down?" "I am," I said, walking to my laptop. "I'm taking it all down. Gary, the skeletons, the guillotine, the whole suburban gothic vibe. It's gone." "Wow, she really won, huh? Karen won, Leo 0? I'm disappointed, man. I thought you had more fight in you." "Oh, I'm not done, Mark. I'm just pivoting." I sat down at my desk. "She wants not graphic. She wants kid-friendly. I'm going to give her so much kid-friendly, she'll have to get a root canal just from looking at it." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'm listening." "She hates graphic. She hates scary. She hates indecent. So I'm going to give her the most wholesome, saccharine-sweet, aggressively non-offensive, morally pure display this neighborhood has ever seen. I am going to weaponize cheerfulness, Mark." "So what? You're going to put up like Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin? A few friendly ghosts?" "No," I said, my fingers flying across the keyboard. "That's cute. Cute is a skirmish. I'm not looking for a skirmish. I'm looking for shock and awe. I need parade float level. I need aggressively wholesome. I need saccharine sweet, weaponized joy." "You're scaring me a little, Leo." I'm searching giant inflatables right now. My screen filled with images. A 15-foot inflatable black cat with a wobbly head. Too Halloween. Too on-brand. Karen could still argue it was spooky. I scrolled past a 15-foot Santa. Too seasonal. We weren't there yet. A giant inflatable turkey. Too lumpy. And honestly, a little sad-looking. A waving American flag. Too political. I didn't want to bring that into it. I need something that is, by its very definition, the exact polar opposite of a guillotine, I mused, more to myself than to Mark. Something that no one can argue with. Something that if you complain about it, you become the monster. A giant baby, Mark suggested. Too weird. Could be graphic in its own way. And then I saw it. It wasn't even on a Halloween site. It was on the website of a company that specialized in custom parade floats and grand opening announcements. It was yellow. It was furry. It had a little rainbow on its belly. "Oh my God," I whispered. "What?" Mark demanded. "What did you find? A 30-foot Elmo?" "Close," I said, an evil, joyous grin spreading across my face. "Mark, I found a 20-foot, vintage-style Care Bear." A Care Bear? Not just any Care Bear. It's Cheer Bear, the yellow one. Its smile it's a rictus of pure, uncomplicated, mandatory joy. It's perfect. "A 20-foot Care Bear," Mark said, processing it. "Leo, that's diabolical. It's brilliant. It's not graphic. It's not indecent. It's Cheer Bear." "Exactly," I said, clicking the Request a Quote button. "How can she possibly complain about Cheer Bear? She'll look insane." "She is insane," Mark pointed out. "But this is next level. This is checkmate, my friend." My joy was short-lived. This wasn't an Amazon Prime item. It wasn't even a buy it now item. This was a custom order, or a rental, and Halloween was in 2 days. I clicked the Contact Us page. Big Air Floats and Custom Inflatables. If you can dream it, we can inflate it. Call for emergency rush orders. This was it. This wasn't just going to be petty. This was going to be expensive and complicated petty. My favorite kind. "Mark, I gotta go. I have to make a call to a professional." "Godspeed, you magnificent bastard," he said, and hung up. I dialed the number. The phone rang 3 times, then was picked up with a sound like someone dropping a bag of gravel. "Yellow, Big Air, Gus." The voice was a low, bored rumble that suggested a diet of cigarettes and jerky. Hi," I said, trying to sound professional. "My name is Leo. I'm calling about an emergency rush order. I have a unique, residential project." There was a long pause on the other end, punctuated by a wet, hacking cough. "Residential? We do car dealerships, pal. Grand openings. We don't do birthday parties." "It's not a birthday party," I said quickly. "It's a neighborhood dispute. And it needs to be big. And it needs to be cheerful, aggressively cheerful. I saw on your website you have a 20-foot Care Bear." Another pause. Longer this time. "You a furry?" No, God no. I'm a patriot," I fumbled. "Look, it's spite. Pure and simple. My HOA president, she's difficult. She told me my Halloween decorations were too graphic, so I'm complying. I need the least graphic, most wholesome, biggest thing you have, and I need it installed by tomorrow night." There was a sound that might have been a chuckle, or possibly the early stages of emphysema. "A spite job, huh? Where are you located?" I gave him my address in Willow Creek. Willow Creek, he repeated, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. Yeah, I know Willow Creek. Know it well. You got a dedicated 20-amp breaker on the north side of your house? I think so, in the garage. It'll do? All right, here's the deal. A 20-foot vintage Cheer model. That's a parade-grade unit. Industrial blower, 4-point tie-down. Needs a generator, or it'll blow every fuse in your house. That sounds perfect, I said. A 2-day rush job. And it's a holiday week, and it's a residential install. He was doing the math. I could hear him tapping on a calculator. It's gonna cost you. And the spite tax is gonna apply. Spite tax? That's what we call jobs where the why is more important than the what. It's an extra 20%. Non-negotiable. I'll pay it, I said, pulling my credit card from my wallet. I'll pay it in cash. Just, can you do it? Cash, you say? My partner and I can be there for a site survey in 1 hour. 1 hour? Great. Perfect. And kid? Yeah? One more thing, Gus said. You said cheerful. You want real cheerful? As cheerful as you can make it, I confirmed. I'll bring the illumination package. See you in an hour. He hung up. Exactly 58 minutes later, a vehicle pulled up that was less a truck and more a collection of mismatched truck parts, held together by rust and willpower. It was a rusty flatbed with a massive, greasy-looking generator strapped to the back, and it was leaking something. 2 men got out. The first was Gus. He was exactly as I'd pictured. Short, wiry, with a stained Big Air Floats baseball cap pulled low and a cigarette hanging from his lips. The second man was, by any definition, a giant. He had to be 6'8", 300 pounds of pure, flannel-covered muscle with a beard that looked like it housed several small, angry birds. He just looked at my house and grunted. So, Gus said, walking onto my lawn without asking, this is the place. That's Gus. I'm Tiny, the giant rumbled. Leo, I said, shaking Gus's rough hand. Tiny just nodded at me. Gus walked the perimeter of my lawn, kicking the turf with his steel-toed boot. Ground soft. Gonna need the 4-foot stakes for this. Wind load on a 20-foot bear is high. You get a cross breeze in this cul-de-sac? Sometimes? He looked at my house, then at my neighbor's house. Then he looked across the street, directly at Karen's house. He squinted. That's 1428 Willow, he said, pointing with his chin. That visor lady live there? My heart leaped. You know her? A dark look crossed Gus's face. Oh, we know her. Did a job last year for the mattress store grand opening on Route 4. She tried to get my truck ticketed. This very truck. For leaking oil on the asphalt in the parking lot. It was rainwater. Had to spend an afternoon in traffic court over it. She's a piece of work, that one. Tiny grunted in agreement. She told me my beard was not in compliance with the shopping center's visual standards. A mattress store? I asked. She wasn't even shopping there, Gus spat. She was just patrolling. I had found my people. These weren't just contractors. They were allies. They were brothers in arms in the war against Karen. So, I said, a grin spreading across my face, the spite tax. Gus looked at Karen's house, then back at me. A slow, crocodilesque smile spread across his face. For this job? For her? I'll waive the spite tax. But, he added, the illumination package is now mandatory. What's the illumination package? It's what you asked for, Tiny rumbled, opening a toolbox on the truck that looked like it could survive a nuclear blast. "You said prison break level." Gus nodded. 4 1,000-watt industrial-grade floodlights, the kind they use for highway night construction. We'll stake 'em, aim 'em right at the bear. It's gonna look cheerful. It's beautiful," I said, almost choking up. "How much?" Gus named a number that made my eyes water. It was a lot. It was new transmission for my car money. I didn't even hesitate. "Cash, you said?" "Cash," Gus confirmed. "We'll install it tomorrow night, after dark. It's more dramatic that way." "One last thing," I said, as I went inside to get the money. "Can you aim the generator's exhaust away from my house?" Gus looked at Karen's house. "We can aim everything," he said. October 30th was a day of strategic deception. As promised, I spent the morning dismantling suburban Gothic. The first thing I did was unplug the jeering crowd speaker. Then, with a heavy heart, I disassembled the guillotine. I put the latex head back in its storage box. I wheeled Gary the zombie, now silent and inert, back into the garage. I boxed up Skeletalica. By noon, my lawn was empty. It was worse than empty. It was pristine. It was compliant. It was beige. I even raked a few stray leaves. The effect was immediate. At 12:30 p.m., Karen did her midday power walk. As she approached my house, she actually slowed down. I was sitting on the porch, reading a book, pretending not to notice. She stopped, staring at the barren, inoffensive patch of grass. She thought she'd won. She thought her citation, her petition, her cops had broken me. She looked over at me. I looked up from my book, and she smirked. A smug, tight-lipped, "I run this cul-de-sac" smirk. She gave me that little two-finger wave again, the one you give a disobedient dog that has finally learned to heel. I just smiled back, as warmly as I could. "Afternoon, Karen. Lovely day." Her smirk faltered. My cheerfulness seemed to confuse her. She gave a curt nod and thwacked her way back home, victory assured. The rest of the day was agony. I waited. I paced. I resisted the urge to peek out the windows. I just let the neighborhood sit with the silence of my compliance. A few neighbors walked by and gave me a sympathetic, "Sorry, man, look." I just waved. Then, 9:00 p.m. The rumble I heard wasn't thunder. It was the sound of Gus and Tiny's flatbed truck rolling into the cul-de-sac with its headlights off, coasting on an engine that sounded like a rock tumbler. It pulled up to my curb. I was outside in an instant. "Evening, Leo," Gus said, hopping down. He was all business. "Night installs are tricky. Let's get to it. Tiny hit the generator." Tiny grunted, and with a grunt, yanked a cord on the massive generator on the truck bed. It roared to life with the sound of a small aircraft engine. It wasn't just loud. It was a deep, industrial thrum that vibrated in my teeth. "Is that street legal?" I yelled over the din. "It's industrial grade," Gus yelled back. "It's fine. Now, where's that breaker?" This was not a subtle operation. This was an invasion. They were banging 4-foot steel stakes into my lawn with sledgehammers. Clang, clang, clang. They were unrolling thick, industrial-grade power cables and taping them down with neon yellow gaffer tape. Lights snapped on in the houses around us. My neighbor Dave peeked out his window, looking terrified. And then, Karen's front door burst open. She was in a pink silk bathrobe, her hair in a tight bun, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. The visor was gone, and she looked naked without it. "What is going on?" she shrieked. marching onto her own lawn. "It is 9 o'clock! It is after the 8 p.m. noise ordinance!" Gus, who was busy unrolling a massive stadium-sized heap of yellow nylon onto my lawn, didn't even look up. "Private property, lady," he roared back over the generator. "We're installing a lawn ornament for the homeowner. We're licensed and bonded." "I'm calling the police," she screamed. "Go ahead," Gus yelled. "Tell him Gus from Big Air says hi." He turned to me and gave me a grin. "This is the fun part." He walked over to the generator and flipped a massive industrial red switch. The sound that followed was not a whir. It was a whoosh, a high-powered industrial blower, the kind they use to dry flooded basements, kicked on, and the yellow heap began to move. It was like watching a mountain rise. It started as a lump, then a shoulder, then a head. The yellow nylon snapped and billowed as it filled with air, growing larger and larger and larger. Karen just stood on her lawn, her mouth open, watching in mute, slack-jawed horror. In 90 seconds, it was fully erect. It was glorious, 20 feet tall, taller than my roof. It was a grotesque, smiling, 2-story-tall yellow god. Its tiny, cartoonish arms were spread wide in a gesture of permanent, inescapable welcome. Its painted-on eyes stared blankly ahead, and on its stomach was the rainbow. I was breathless. "Not done yet," Gus said, his hand hovering over a second switch. "Ready for the illumination package?" "Hit it," I whispered. Gus flipped the switch. Foomp, 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 foomp. 4 1,000-watt floodlights positioned in a perfect semicircle burst to life. My lawn ceased to be a lawn. It became a stage. It was celestial. It looked like the beginning of the rapture, sponsored by a 1980s toy company. The bear wasn't just lit. It was glowing. It was a beacon. It was a sun. A horrible, yellow, cheerful sun. And the light, oh, the light. It didn't just illuminate the bear. It saturated everything. It flooded my lawn. It flooded the street. And most beautifully, it flooded the entire front of Karen's house. It punched right through her blinds. It lit up her porch like it was high noon. Karen, caught in the beam, threw a hand up to shield her eyes. Her pink bathrobe turned a sickly shade of yellow. She couldn't form a word. She just sputtered. She looked like a goldfish trying to file a complaint. It wasn't graphic. It wasn't scary. It wasn't indecent. It was 100% HOA-compliant cheer. And it was the most horrifying thing I had ever seen. Gus leaned over, cigarette in his mouth. "That," he said, admiring his work, "is what you call cheerful. That'll be cash." I paid Gus and Tiny in a wad of cash under the blinding, holy light of Cheer Bear. They packed up their tools, tipped their hats, and rumbled off into the night, leaving me alone with my creation. The cul-de-sac was silent, save for the steady industrial thrum of the generator. The silence lasted for about 30 seconds. Then, from inside Karen's house, came a shriek. It was a sound I had only ever heard in nature documentaries, usually right before a predator makes a kill. "It's staring at me! I can't! It's in my bedroom! The lights! Turn it off! Turn it off!" I could hear her, clear as day, shrieking into her phone. She was, as Gus had predicted, calling the police. I went inside, grabbed a beer, and came back out to my porch. I sat in my rocking chair, bathed in the warm, yellow glow. It was actually quite pleasant, like a personal, private son. 10 minutes later, the familiar squad car rolled into the cul-de-sac. This time, there were no flashing lights. It just arrived. Sergeant Miller got out of the driver's side. Officer Davis got out of the passenger side. Miller got out, looked up at the 20-foot apocalyptically bright, smiling Care Bear. He looked at the generator. He looked at Karen, who was now on her lawn in her bathrobe, vibrating with a rage so pure it was almost visible. Then he looked at me, sitting peacefully in my rocker, sipping a beer. Sergeant Miller slowly, deliberately, pinched the bridge of his nose. He squeezed his eyes shut for a full 3 seconds. Then, with the sigh of a man who has truly seen the end of days, he walked up my driveway. He stopped 10 feet from me. He didn't even look at the bear anymore. He just looked at me. "Really?" That was all he said. "What?" I said, spreading my hands innocently. "It's Cheer Bear, licensed property of American Greetings, circa 1983. It's the physical embodiment of kid-friendly. I toned it down, Sergeant, just like you asked." "You," he struggled. "You toned it down by installing what looks like a Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade float. There's not a drop of fake blood on him, officer. He's not graphic. He's not indecent. He's wholesome. The kids are gonna love it." "He's harassing me!" Karen screamed, running onto my lawn, her slippers flapping. "This is psychological terrorism. The lights, the noise. He's doing it on purpose." "Ma'am," Miller said, turning to her with an ironclad patience that deserved a medal. "Please get off his property." "But he—" "Ma'am, back on your lawn. Now." Karen, sputtering, retreated to the sidewalk. Miller turned back to me. "Sir, the lights. They're a bit much, don't you think? And the generator. It's 9:30 at night." "Safety, Sergeant," I said, my face a mask of civic concern. "That's a very large inflatable. You wouldn't want a neighborhood kid to trip and fall in the dark, would you? It's a safety illumination feature. As for the generator, it's a high-efficiency model. It's surprisingly quiet if you're not standing right next to it. And I checked the noise ordinance. The decibel level at her property line is just under the legal limit." "Gus, you magnificent bastard. You knew the codes." Miller looked at me. He knew that I knew. I knew that he knew, but there was nothing he could do. Officer Davis, meanwhile, had his notepad out. He was, to my disbelief, walking the perimeter. "Sergeant," Davis called out, "the generator appears to be to code, and the stakes are flagged for visibility. It all looks very professional." Miller looked like he was going to have an aneurysm. "Davis," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I swear to God, if you ask him if the bear is rated for this kind of illumination, I am personally reassigning you to the evidence locker for a month. Do you understand me? A month. With the old moldy shoes." "But Sarge, the light spill—" "Get in the car." Davis, snapping his book shut, scurried back to the passenger side. Miller turned to Karen. His face was set. He was no longer a peacekeeper. He was a man delivering a verdict. "Ma'am," he said, loud enough for the whole cul-de-sac to hear, "I have looked at the decoration. It is not illegal. The lights are on his property, pointed at his property. The generator is within noise ordinance limits. It is a bear." "But it's staring at me," she wailed. "Ma'am," Miller said, his patience finally, completely gone. "It's a Care Bear. It doesn't have pupils. It's staring at everyone. My hands are tied. There is no crime here. Go inside. Close your curtains." "But," But indecent! It is the opposite of indecent, ma'am. It's a toy. Miller, having reached his absolute limit, turned on his heel. "Good night, sir," he said to me, without a trace of warmth. "Please don't make me come back here, for any reason, or I will find something. A weed, an unkempt shrub, something." "Understood, officer. Have a safe night." He got in his car. Karen just stood there, on the sidewalk, under the glorious yellow light, her mouth agape. She was beaten. As the squad car pulled away, she let out a sound like a single, sad, deflating balloon. Pfft! She turned, her bathrobe dragging, and retreated into her house, slamming the door. A moment later, her bedroom lights went out. But it didn't matter. The room was still bright yellow. I took a long, slow sip of my beer. I wasn't just a homeowner. I was a folk hero. A very, very petty folk hero. Halloween night. The 31st. It was a spectacle. My house was no longer just a house. It was a destination. By 6 p.m., the cul-de-sac was full. Not just of our neighbors, but of strangers. Cars were driving slowly down the street, passengers holding phones out the window, taking pictures and videos. The generator thrummed, the lights blazed. And Cheer Bear, 20 feet of nylon and spite, smiled benevolently upon them all. The kids loved it. They weren't scared. They were mesmerized. They treated it like a landmark. They were taking selfies, lining up in front of it, striking poses. "This is epic," I heard one teenager yell. I was giving out the full-size candy bars, and I was a king. The best part, though, was the neighbors. The ones who had been too scared of Karen to do more than offer a polite wave. Neighbor Dave, from 2 doors down, came up to me, his kids in tow. He leaned in conspiratorially. "Man," he said, grinning from ear to ear, that is just inspired. My kids are obsessed. I wanted to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" "For this," he gestured to the bear. "Karen's been trying to get my basketball hoop banned for 6 months. Says the recreational noise is lowering property values. She hasn't left her house in 24 hours. This is a public service, man." I looked across the street. He was right. Karen's house was dark. Every curtain, every blind was drawn tight. She wasn't just not participating. She was in a self-imposed siege. No candy, no porch light. Nothing. I felt a twinge of guilt. It lasted for about half a second. Then it was gone, replaced by the warm, satisfying glow of pure, unadulterated victory. By 10 p.m., the candy was gone, and the last of the trick-or-treaters had cleared out. I walked over and hit the master switch. The 4 floodlights cut out, plunging the street into a shocking, sudden darkness. Then I killed the generator. The thrum died, and the silence that rushed in was deafening. And then, the most satisfying sound of all, the slow, sad whoomph of the 20-foot Care Bear as it sighed, folded, and collapsed in on itself, a defeated pile of yellow nylon on my lawn. I was cleaning up my beer bottle when my phone buzzed. It was an email. It was from Gus, Big Air Floats. Subject: Thank you for your business body. Leo, heard from a friend on the force that the install was a big hit. Glad we could help. Just FYI, we're having a sale. Got a 30-foot My Little Pony, Rainbow Dash, on a New Year's discount. Let me know. I looked at the email. I looked at the deflated yellow heap on my lawn. I looked at Karen's dark, silent house. Huh. You know, New Year's is right around the corner.